Hello, 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 and welcome back. My name is Lauren, and this is Chicago Reacts. So now we are going to get straight into every single Warhammer 40k, WH40k Faction Explained Part 2, Part 1. So if you watched the last video, you know that I did every single Warhammer faction explained part 1, but I did it in 3 separate parts. So we're doing the same thing here with the part 2 in 3 separate parts because it is yet again an hour long. So marching through, this will be fun. It's okay. I've actually really enjoyed learning about the different factions and cults. I've forgotten pretty much everything already except for the Battle Sisters and also that spy lady with the shape-shifting. So that is what I most... Oh, actually, you know what? Actually, I talked a lot about the various superhuman, like, muscle guys. Those were kind of cool, but again, my favorite were the Battle Nuns and the Shapeshifter Spy. That was my favorite in the human faction, but this is going to appeal to me a lot, I think, with the chaos monsters and demons and gods. I always have a lot of fun with those sorts of art and that thing. I'm so excited. So anyway, sorry, that was a long intro, but we are going to get right in. Thank you again for liking, commenting, subscribing, and sharing. We really appreciate you here. And I'm going to get going on this video. Let's go.
Hey all, this is part 2
Hello.
in a 2-part series on the Warhammer races. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, we do the Imperium of Man. You can check that out in the description, and I would highly recommend you watch that to get context for this episode. If you already have, go ahead and keep on watching. So after an entire episode of nothing but humans, we can now talk about chaos, which involves humans again.
Oh.
A little bit less.
Kind of.
We also got demons and shit.
I just felt someone grab my ass.
What?
Like hard, Nick.
So, as I've mentioned many times...
That was from Ghost Adventures, and I really only know that because, though I have not seen any actual Ghost Adventures, I have seen that clip used about 1 million times over the course of spooky season in various videos. So now I know that sound clip so well, even though I've never seen that show.
Times before, we've discussed the warp, the immaterium, the hellish landscape, the purgatory dimension realm between the material realm of our existence. Now, in the warp, it's terrifying, horrible. There are demons everywhere. Things are crazy. All your minds and thoughts and emotions get projected there. It is both formless and empty. It is vast and tiny. It obeys the laws of time and physics while simultaneously does absolutely nothing of the sort. It is a hodgepodge and a culmination of just unknowable, eldritch, horrifying shit. And
Sounds like home.
there are 4 gods that permeate in chaos and the warp. These are the 4 major chaos gods. And if we wish to learn about chaos, we need to learn about each and every single one of these chaos gods. First up, we have Khorne, and he is the easiest. Khorne is your classic Satan. He is all about anger, murder, fighting, blood, guts, death. You ever heard the term blood for the blood god, skull for the skull throne? That's Khorne. The whole idea is that he is all about the fury and strength of battle. He doesn't...
Oh my god, I quote that all the time. I had no idea it was... That's amazing. I didn't know that was from this. That's so fun.
Where blood comes from, so long as blood is flowing. He wants to fight and murder and carnage and slaughter and death, 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 death. That is Khorne. Very simple to understand. Next up, you have Tzeentch, and Tzeentch is the god of change. However, the god of change, it's permeates in so many different other ways. He's the most eldritch of all the
Yeah, he's got like
gods.
2... Ooh.
He has this weird way to always be plucking at the strings of the universe. He's always conniving and scheming and doing his best to cause as much little bullshit as he can. Tzeentch is unknowable. Everything that makes
So
sense,
many mouths.
he will and won't do. Every future and setting and every type of destiny or fate is all foretold and also changeable. It is set in stone while also completely random. He knows what everything is going to happen and also that none of it's going to happen. you would ask Zeech a question. That question leads to 3 more questions, and those questions lead to the heat death of the universe, which asks 4 answers to those questions. And then he thinks to himself, what are questions even really? And are you even asking the questions, or are you simply giving paths to answers and other horse shit? Zeech is just, I'm gonna fuck with stuff. He is yes and he is no. He is the understanding and he is complexity. He is unknowable. And that's what the God of Change is about. Very bizarre. And he likes birds a lot.
Does anybody else have Katy Perry's Hot and Cold song stuck in their head now? He's hot then you're cold, you're yes then you're no, you're in then you're out, you're up then that one. Is it called Hot and Cold? What is that called? Either way, that song stuck in my head.
I don't know why. Next up, we got Papa Nurgle. Papa
Yes.
Nurgle, he loves you for who you are. Probably not. He will murder you just the same. But Papa Nurgle is about rot, pestilence, death, and decay. He is the end of everything. Him and Zeech do not like each other very much because where Zeech represents change and adjustment, Nurgle represents stagnation and death. He is all about miasma and pestilence and
he's so gross.
Bloat and pus and organs and people just being sedentary, sloth. He is the idea that everything will rot and decay and die. Nothing is certain besides decay and death. All of us will end up the same way, and broken down through just sheer never-ending decomposition.
Ew.
So the joke that Nurgle always loves you is generally because of that, because we all end up the same. We all rot, and we all die and wither. That's Nurgle, and he's got a general theme of course, pestilence and different kinds of diseases and sickness and things of that nature. That's generally Nurgle. He's pretty easy to understand as well, and he chunk. Finally, we have the youngest of the Chaos Gods, and that is Slaanesh, also known as the Prince of Pleasure or the God of Unspeakable Excess. Slaanesh is generally referred to with sex, but it's not only sex, it's just that's a good avenue if you want to make stuff. Slaanesh is just the idea of the senses of the body being cranked to not just 11, but more like 17.
Oh, wow.
So let's discuss Slaanesh
That's
a little
fun.
bit more when we talk about the Eldar, because they done fucked up, but it, or whatever, is mainly about just the excess of emotions.
Oh, that's fine.
And therefore, sex is generally a large part of it. However, it's mostly pain and torture. Lots of pain, torture, but sometimes sexually related or drug related. Lots of drugs.
Okay, so question. Are these images and such in the background official, or are they all fan-made? Because all of them have been amazing. So regardless of whether they are official images or if they're fan-made images, that's really cool. Also, I love the fact that they're all so different. Like, if they are fan-made, everyone's got their own interpretations of the characters, and that's really, really cool. And if they're all official, that's even more excellent. I think that officially, they can look like a lot of different things. I think that's really, really interesting.
Lots of drugs. Slaanesh gets off on everything. Extremes in happiness, extremes in sadness, extremes in pain and sadism and masochism. And of course that goes along with the sex part of it as well. It's generally referred to with sex because of the color scheme, very purple, lots of exposed genitalia. A lot of their models have like exposed nipples and stuff. And that is generally the theme you go for from a physical side, but it really embodies everything. Mainly pain and also the excessive amounts of emotion. So when it comes down to it, you'll find a lot of them have things like spikes or whips or any kind of BDSM style gear because it is unspeakable excess, the Prince of Pleasure. Everything in excess to the point where it is just sheer frightening. That is Slaanesh in a nutshell.
I like Slaanesh.
Bizarre and a little hard to describe sometimes, but as we talk more about Dark Eldar later in this video, you'll understand it far, far better and far more than you'd want to. Now you might be thinking, why would anyone ever want to join Chaos? They all look horrifying, screwed up, and just frightening things, right? Well, the thing is that, of course, one, your mind is put into the warp and the immaterium, so you can be easily swayed by chaos demons when they get into your head, especially if you're a psyker. Sometimes regiments of the less mentally strong people, whether they be civilians or, say, low-level guardsmen or conscripts, can be easily swayed by this and become chaos cultists and stuff, and they serve their dark gods and whatever god they personally refer.
So there are
However,
civilians. I didn't realize there were civilians.
chaos in their own right isn't necessarily evil. See,
No,
the
not at all.
warp is every manifestation of emotion and being, every soul, everything of existence. This includes all the good things. All the different chaos gods have another side to their coin. Khorne might be death, murder, slaughter, slaughter, but he's also got this weird sense of survival of the fittest, trial by combat, and honor. Khorne will never lie to you. Khorne will never stab you in the back. Khorne isn't about conniving and scheming. Khorne is about straight up mano e mano, you versus me, get in the ring, we're gonna murder each other hard right now. It may not be a good thing at the end of the day, but it is that other side of the coin. Him and Tzeentch generally don't get along because Tzeentch is that conniving schemer, but he's also about the idea of hope. Where there is change for your predicament. There is change for your problem. The hope of the galaxy, the ability to bend the world to your will, the idea that your fate is not set in stone, but in reality that you control your own destiny and can control it whenever you want. The changer of ways, that is Tzeentch.
See, I think that Tzeentch, even in the first description, even with all the bad stuff he was saying, I think that he was my favorite already, and then followed by Purple One. But I really like that. And again, I've always liked the idea of chaos in general. I think you can't really have good things without chaos. Like, every single time a regime tries to be like super ordered, which is, chaos is like the opposite of order, you get fascists. So like, let's throw in some nonsense. I love that. And I think that it's super necessary. And I like this guy.
And of course, Tzeentch and Nurgle hate each other because while Nurgle does represent stagnation, death, and decay, he also represents finality and ending. The fact that you can be mentally at peace knowing that you will end and how you will end. Fear of the unknown, fear of change is not present with Nurgle. With Nurgle, everything will rot and die, and that provides that finality, that ability that this is over. We are all the same, and we will all end the same. We know the meaning of life. The meaning of life is to live and die and rot. And with that, it brings peace of mind. Slaanesh is a lot more simple. While they are the excess of emotion, they are also the representation of emotion. Slaanesh embodies happiness. Slaanesh embodies excitement and joy and pleasure, not only in the sense of the physical, bam style of pleasure, but also everything else like food and drink and air on your cheek and sunlight, the feeling, emotion and feeling. All of that is also represented with Slaanesh. So you have to ask, why are they always represented as super evil skulls and spikes on everything? And
Because
want
it's
to murder
fun.
everybody? I don't really got an answer for you on that one. My assumption is that because mentally humans may think worse thoughts, even if we don't act on them, and therefore they're projected in the warp more. That one's a little bit weird. I don't know. This is me spitballing right now, but I don't know. You need a super bad guy. You already got the Imperium of Man. You need somebody to be a little bit worse than them. So you got demons. Honestly, who cares? I just want to buy like a bird magician. Look at him. So cool. So combining all this together on the tabletop, Chaos Demons are generally very melee based. They run in, go really hard. You have lots of summoning and conjuring, tons of spells. Generally a little bit frail, but they have special saves to make them a little bit stronger. You've got giant demons and smaller demons. You got
I love that little guy.
the big guys. Demons are as they seem.
Oh no, I gotta go back and look at him.
So combining all this together on the tabletop, Chaos Demons are generally very melee based. They run in, go really hard. You have lots of summoning and conjuring, tons of spells. Generally a little bit frail, but they have special saves to make them a little bit stronger. You've got giant demons and small.
Look how little. Oh my god, look at him. And he's got his little sassy arms on his hips. Oh my god, I love him. Look at him go. I adore him. I have no, it's a Nurgle demon, yeah? Okay, I'm sorry. I adore him. He's so cute.
Smaller demons, you got hordes of little boys and tons of big guys. Demons are,
Big boys.
as they seem, demons. Nurgle is slow, Khorne is super scary in melee, you've got Zeech, who are far more into psychers and spellcasting, and then Slaanesh, who is all melee, really fast but squishy, but in lots of hordes of tons of melee. And
Like a warlock in D&D. Fast and squishy.
so overall, the demons are a huge part of 40k and a massive threat to almost every single faction with the exception of a couple. However, the big part about demons is also transferred into the other 9 Primarchs we didn't talk about, which are the Chaos Space Marines. So Horus and all of his boys, all of them in the Primarchs, they have all also become Chaos Boys, and they all have their own special Chaos Legions, specializing in so many different things, just like the Adeptus Astartes, the Angels of Death, the regular Space Marines. Chaos Space Marines aren't a whole lot different than the regular Space Marines. They have the same armor, generally the same training and toughness. They just specialize in different kinds of things. And also a lot of the Primarchs have ascended into greater is it greater demons? They're demon Primarchs at this point. Gigantic, horrifying man-demon hybrids that are pretty awesome, if I'm going to be honest. They look really cool.
They do look
but
really
them
cool.
and their associated legions that they are a part of are all kind of going out there and causing a large ruckus for everyone else. Considering the raw strength and firepower of a legion of Space Marines, imagine that entire legion just converting to chaos and immediately fighting you. It's generally pretty horrifying. There's a lot of them, so I gotta write them down, but you've got the Emperor's Children with Primarch Fulgrim, loyal to Slaanesh. These people, they are some messed up.
Ew, look at the skin,
They're just
dude.
sensory overload, tons of drugs, tons of torture. And I think Fulgrim is a demon Primarch right now, and oh god, I am terrified to see what that man looks like, at least on the tabletop, because Emperor's Children are not good people. You've got the Iron Warriors, which are kind of like opposite of the Imperial Fists, with Primarch Perturabo, I believe is his name. They're Chaos Undivided. They just kind of serve chaos in a general aspect instead of choosing one of the 4. But the Iron Warriors are big on the siege and fortification, and they're basically entirely against the Imperial Fists and are a major rival. Perturabo, I believe, is also still alive, and I'm also very interested to see what he looks like, because Demon Primarchs are badass. You've got the Night Lords with Primarch Conrad Kurz. Conrad Kurz is dead, which is good because he's a sick fuck. But the Night Lords are generally about terrorizing people and terrorism. They're generally about fear, and rightly so. You've got the World Eaters with Primarch Angron, still alive, also excited to see.
I like him.
Angron, if you think you've known an angry person, Angron is the angriest son of a bitch you will ever know. Angron removed parts of his brain that didn't make him angry, so he could be angry.
The names of some of these people. It's like the Corvus thing all over again. Angron. Oh my god. They literally are naming people like She-Ra characters. I feel like I mentioned that before, but it's just like, yeah, Catra has cat tendencies. Angron is angry. Yeah, you think? I love that. It's lazy, but it sounds cool.
Angron, fucker's mad. You've got the Death Guard with Primarch Mortarion. They actually
Mortarion.
have their own special codex and their own major army on the tabletop.
That's pretty
Mortarion himself is actually one of the models, and look at him. Look at him.
That is cool.
It's so cool looking. Of course, Nurgle based, obviously. So very slow but very tanky.
Mortarion,
You've got
makes
the
sense.
Word Bearers with Primarch Lorgar. Lorgar is, I believe, still alive. I don't know what's up with him at the current moment, but the Word Bearers are generally the people who caused all the major problems in the beginning. At least I blame them for it. They're little assholes. You got the Black Legion with Primarch Horus.
There he is.
Nerd. You've got the Alpha Legion with Primarch Alfarius Omegon. Chaos, I think. And then finally, you've got the Thousand Sons with Primarch Magnus the Nerd. The Thousand Sons also have their own book, just like the Death Guard. Magnus is also a tabletop model. He looks super cool, as you can tell, and they're all super heavily Psyker and kind of Egyptian themed. They look pretty neat. But overall, with
Magnus
all
the
of these
Nerd.
Chaos Space Marine factions, you can play as a lot of different ones, but the main ones that you can really work at are standard Space Marines, Chaos Space Marines, as well as the Death Guard and Thousand Sons, as they are the most fleshed out, especially on the tabletop at least. See this right here, this is a really good way to describe the Chaos Space Marines. What the thick-headed fools with their broken corpse of an emperor fail to understand is that not only can they never defeat us, but they cannot hide or flee or shield themselves from the triumph of chaos. They are finite and we are unbound, undivided. They must not err, or they shall fall to heresy. All who fall join our cause. Every imperial fool who dares to open his eyes is a willing recruit. They strive merely to hold back our fury and might, and it consumes them. Thus, you can see chaos is inevitable. We lurk not only beyond their grasp and at their gates, we lurk within the darkness of their souls, on the tip of their tongues, in their tortured dreams. We are them, but freed from the shackles of ignorance. We are them, grown strong, evolved. We are them, but so much more.
I mean,
as hardcore
sign me
as
up.
that quote is, the saddest part is they're mostly right.
Yeah.
Chaos is basically unkillable. You could probably get rid of Space Marines, a decent amount, the Chaos Space Marines that is, but every soul that dies goes to the warp.
Yeah.
Every Chaos soul will end up back in the warp. And depending on how hard you killed them, they will come back at some point. Every demon you banish will return at some point. Chaos is unstoppable. The warp is unending. And while maybe there is at some point some way to stop them somehow, the resources to do so, the requirements to do so, are so far beyond the reaches of man and the other races at the current moment that really it's just an unstoppable force that just keeps on coming and is just barely being slowed. Chaos is by far the biggest threat. They are
Just let it happen.
Number, their legions are everywhere, and yeah, they're pretty scary. So, I promise, we're done with humans now. Let's talk about some Xenos. So let's talk about the Eldar, or also known as the Eldari, which are a super hyper-specialized and very technologically advanced race of, well, elf people. They were,
Yeah, I thought so.
responsible for the creation of Slanesh, the newest demon god. How'd they do that? Debauchery on a world-ending scale. See, back in the day, it was just Khorne, Tzeentch, and Nurgle. And the Eldar are very, very ancient. Millions of years. These Eldar, however, have a bit of a sensory problem. You know, every kind of pain or feeling that you have is a little bit amplified compared to the normal. However, with Eldar, as their race advanced so excessively, and they became so self-reliant, and everything became so easy, there was no requirement for food production anymore. There was no shortages. Everything was basically done. Everyone was so comfortable. And that
See, you get bored and there's just order and everything is perfect and then nonsense must happen. Chaos is inevitable. I sound like the freaking Joker. Oops.
comfort breeded this weird sedation. And that sedation breeded the requirement for more and more debauchery.
Debauchery!
Debauchery! Debauchery!
When everything you have can be so easily acquired, you will end up down this road of pure debauchery. All of the senses the Eldar had that were so powerful, things like feeling, happiness, sadness, and just evil and good, all needed to be satisfied and satiated. And the desire to satiate these senses grew more and more with worse and worse debauchery. It started off with things like sex and drugs becoming so much more rampant because these are the first things you generally turn to when requirements for living are so easily accessible. It would get to the point that made Sander Cohen in BioShock look sane. All right, this is the kind of debauchery it led to. It was constantly satisfying and satiating these sexual and sadistic or masochistic fantasies that only elevated and elevated. And this was species-wide. People started going down darker, more depraved, and more violent paths as time went on.
That looks cool, though.
Some people didn't entirely take to that. Some of the Eldar were looking at this depraved species that they had become and said, no thanks for me, dog. I'm good.
Fuck
And they
this shit,
bailed.
I'm out.
These are the Craft World Eldar.
All right, the Craft
They left
World.
on these giant continent-sized starships called craft worlds. They believed in learning the old ways of the Eldar and pushing away from this depravity and debauchery and going back to their main roots. And so they would segment themselves on
That's a
these
cool
giant
ship.
craft worlds far in the outer reaches of space.
It's really
they
cool
even had
ship.
this thing called the Webway. Remember what we mentioned about warp travel with the Imperium? Well, the Eldar had something way safer called a Webway. And the Eldar Webway is actually like a pocket dimension kind of thing. And in that pocket dimension, there were also more horrible, depraved groups and clans that would spend their time in there. And if you imagine the debauchery was bad already, these were debauchery X10. So all of this continued, and it bloated until Slaanesh just burst forth. All that emotion, all that mental, thought processes, I suppose, all of this in such a condensed space. Don't forget, this is all being shot, all their souls as well, into the warp. All this depravity right into the warp. So what happened? Boom! Slaanesh was birthed and killed off 90% of the entire Eldar population. Untold trillions had their souls ripped from their bodies and their actual fleshy bodies devoured by Slaanesh demons. The entirety of the Eldar race was eaten alive and their souls consumed to the Prince of Pleasure.
Yikes.
All of them got fucked up. It was so bad that it literally ripped a warp hole into the fabric of the materium called the Eye of Terror. That's literally this like quasi horrifying gateway portal from the materium and the immaterium right next to Cadia. And it is horrifying.
I still don't know what happened to Cadia. You are not. He cries every time he mentions Cadia, and I still have no idea what Cadia even is. It's very frustrating. Tell me what Cadia is. I think that it was one of the things that like got zapped by the Inquisitors, right? I think that's what I assumed.
So this Slaanesh, also known as She Who Thirsts by the Eldar, slaughtered the entire population except for a couple. Those in the craft worlds were actually not affected by this as they were so far in the reaches of the galaxy. That crazy crack, that birth of Slaanesh, only affected the ones in the center. So these craft world Eldar were able to escape, but Slaanesh got their sights on them. Every time an Eldar will die, their soul doesn't just pass into the warp naturally. It goes straight to Slaanesh, craft world or not. What about those people in the Webway? Well, imagine that giant birth happening, but they were only able to just barely get a grasp onto you. Slaanesh was just barely able to hold on. These people are the Dark Eldar, or also known as the Drukhari. The Eldar population right now is so massively small. It is minuscule compared to any of the other most of the other populations in the universe. The Eldar are consistently having issues trying to get their population up because as their souls are constantly being hungered by from Slaanesh, they realize their entire species is doomed. And they understand it very well. Since the time of the fall, our race has been haunted by what we, in our reckless pursuit of hedonistic indulgence, gave birth to. Though our dreams once overturned worlds and quenched suns, we are now but fitful shadows clinging to the edge of existence.
Yikes.
All the stars in the sky cannot blot out the hateful glare of the red moon's eye. The birthing place of the great enemy pulses with all the malice of a demon that is dreaming, casting its shadow over all we have ever done and all we ever shall. Every twisted strand of fate and casting of the runes leads me to this time, to this place, and it is clear that the final battle awaits me at the ancient Crone worlds, a conflict the likes of which has not been seen since the Mon-Kai warred amongst themselves and their corpse of a seer fell to his traitorous son. Is coming, and all my steps lead towards it, no matter that I walk other paths. I see the stars stain red with the blood of the Mon-Kai, and though their wars do not concern me, I would gladly let them destroy one another. I know that to avoid this fight is to condemn my race to inevitable doom, and though all I see is darkness, I know that I will not flinch from my destiny.
Also, that's very poetic and gorgeous and lovely. It's monkey, right? They're making fun of the humans, the elfin person. He's making fun of the humans and like, the monkeys, right? Right? That has to be the joke. Also, it's interesting. And like, again, this is very, that's heavy. That's deep stuff.
And now let's talk about cute plastic models.
Bro, I'm straight up not having a good time.
The first playable race we have for the Eldar are the Craft World Eldar and living in those Craft World starships I mentioned earlier. And each of them have their own kind of Craft World, almost like a Space Marine Legion. Each Craft World is in itself its own special kind of group. And the Eldar themselves are very fast and rely a lot on trickery. They are squishy, a bit weak, but they're very in tune as psychers. Tons of psychers across the entire Eldar population, and their weaponry and abilities are fast and extremely hard-hitting, but of course rather fragile. Understanding an Eldar's brain is an exercise in futility. They are all over the place in confusion and trickery on a whole galactic scale. They fight weird, they think weirder, and Eldar in their own right really rely on this to keep their species alive. They need to think about deception and the strangeness of what they do if they truly want to not be immediately murdered and slaughtered wholesale thanks to their entirely small population. However, I must say that it seems like their population is getting slightly better. These craft worlds hold millions upon millions of people.
Okay.
And as they continually, reproduce and have their craft worlds expand, losing a few people in battle, while hurts a lot, they aren't really losing what's extremely precious to them. It's not like every single death means the death of their species. It seems like they're kind of on the upturn a little bit. They're still a doomed race being sucked into Slaanesh every time someone dies, but they are definitely doing a little bit better than they were before. Eldar are fast, cunning, and what they don't make up for in tankiness, they make up for in extremely advanced weaponry. They also call humans Monkai, which is something I mentioned earlier.
All right, again, monkey, right? It's got to be monkey. All right, we're going to have to figure out a place to pause this soon.
That is a derogatory slur for humans in the Warhammer world. Why is it called Monkai? Well, it's because you can't, in your game, call people monkeys.
See? I was right. Ha ha, ha ha. I was correct. I was correct about that. I do love that. All right. Yes. So I'm going to end this particular segment on the Monkai and on me being correct because I like it when I am right about something and when I actually understand the joke. And also, I probably should have stopped it like back when we first stopped talking about humans and then kept going, but I didn't. So that's on me. But I do need to make this video several sections. So thank you very much for watching. I like the elf stuff. I like the chaos stuff. I mean, just this, it's more interesting to me. And I think it makes a lot more sense. Like the people who are involved with it just makes more sense to me from a logical perspective, as opposed to like fighting for a terrifying corpse guy who feeds on thousands and thousands of souls in order to give you technological advances and just keep fighting, and then nothing you do is ever right, and like if you, as soon as you question it, you immediately, like, that's a little scary. I don't like that. This stuff, at least, it's like, yeah, chaos. Things are gonna be nonsense. I still think I like that. Just see the guy with all the teeth and the questions. I think he's still my favorite. Shlaneth is a lot of fun though, but I still think that the questions guy is my favorite because that's just makes the most sense to me. And thank you very much for joining me on my continuing Warhammer journey. You should absolutely come back next time for part 2. Please, feel free to like, share, subscribe. We really do appreciate it. It makes us very happy. I like it when I get to, see your comments, and when you tell me the things that I have said incorrectly, or when you fill me in on the things that I don't know or don't understand. So I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. If you can become a Patreon, that would also be a great help. You get to have several perks if you become a Patreon. You get to have some early content. You get to participate in polls. You help decide what it is that I'll be watching. You get a little bit more priority, I guess, in those decisions if you're a Patreon member. So appreciate you very much, and I will see you all in the next part of every single Warhammer Faction Explained Part 2.